Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So how are you, my dear friends? Oh, it sounds so bad at the beginning of a session. No, actually, Collins just joked saying that Father is strict. It doesn't mean that you should have a very strict look on your face. Actually, that's not the way I am, except in the parish. Because when I am out for sessions and for retreats and talks, I don't have a grumpy face coming here with. Because in the parish, you need to put on with people so that you have a very assertive look for people. So there's another phase inside the church, but other phase outside the church. So hi to you all this afternoon. Jambo. When this word Jambo came on the screen, I laughed at my very self. Because I'm already fat, stout enough. But when I joined the seminary, I was literally more fat than what I was right now. So the bishop said, are you going to empty the diocese? Because he's sending a fat person into the diocese. So Bishop Bernard asked me, are you going to make diocese empty eating? You look so fat. I said, I eat little, I look fat, that's it. So when I went inside the seminary, in Bangalore, there's a famous circus called the Jumbo Circus. Okay, there's a Jumbo Circus. And who's called the Jumbo inside the circus? The elephant. So when I went to the seminary and I was new, and all my friends who were there, all the Bangaloreans, they said, hey, look, Jumbo is coming in. And that was the first pet name that I received inside the seminary for the last 9 years. If anybody went and called his brother John there, they will wonder who's John. Or John Paul. But everyone knew my another name called Jumbo. So I was always favoritely called as Jumbo. So when I saw that song, Jambo, Jesus Loves You, I said, oh my God, once again I'm hearing after 9 years of my priest life, I'm hearing once again someone on the screen calling at the beginning of my session, Jambo, I love you, come for the session right now. So really I'm happy to be with you all this very day. I was just sharing with Brother Colin that I've gone across within Bangalore city to convents, to religious houses, and also to certain prayer groups giving sessions and talks and retreat talks. This is the first time where I'm taking a very official kind of a topic, kind of a thing, because normally wherever we go, we choose the topic which we want to speak, to address people, wherever it is. But Colin said this is going to be, I asked, this is going to be very spiritual or it's going to be more professional? What sort of it? He said you need to balance it. So therefore, it is going to be a mixture of both. So on this 4th Catholic Leadership School, the title that I have placed, if you look at the title, what is it written there? Yeah. I was thinking, should I write, when I was typing itself, instead of writing leadership, I wrote it there as leadership. Leadership. Because in Psalm 23, and from the very beginning of the scriptures, God has always been as a shepherd and we are belonging to his flock. And whenever we belong to a diocese, we address the bishop as the shepherd. Because if you know that in Bangalore website, if you go every Sunday, our bishop comes with a video called the Shepherd's Voice. Shepherd's Voice. So the Catholic Church has always seen the authoritative person as the shepherd and the congregation as the flock handed over. The same way when Jesus resurrected and when he came back to meet his apostle Peter, In the Gospel of John, we see Jesus says, tend my sheep, take care of my flock. So he gives the shepherd role, and always he saw that whoever came into his flock were his sheep. So the image of Jesus is, he is a leader with his sheep. He will never abandon his sheep. That's what in the Gospel of John we see, that a hired man will run away when there is a kind of a disaster coming to the flock. But a shepherd, come what may, he will protect his flock, he will lead his flock, he will guide his flock, he will feed his flock, and therefore Jesus is a leader sheep. And those who have gathered here today, we are taking up that role of not leadership, the role of leadership. Leadership. So before I go to the session or the real slide, in a seated place, can we sing this song? It's a beautiful song that is, Shepherd of my soul, I give you full control. Yeah? Just let's close our eyes for a moment, not to put you all back again to nap, but just to get into the real session, that I have a leadership right next to me. And what is this leadership trying to convey me is what this entire song is. You can be seated. You can sit. We can sit and sing this.
Shepherd of my soul, I give you full control. Wherever you may lead, I will follow. I have made the choice to listen to your voice. Wherever you may lead, I will go. Shepherd of my soul, I give you full control. Wherever you may lead, I will follow. I have made a choice to listen to your voice. Wherever you may lead, I will go. Be it in the quiet pastures or by a gentle breeze, the shepherd of my soul is by my side. Should I face a mighty mountain or a valley dark and deep, the shepherd of my soul by my side. Shepherd of my soul, I give you full control. Wherever you may lead, I will follow. I have made a choice to listen to your voice. Wherever you may lead, I will go.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. So the shepherd is in control of our sleep this afternoon, isn't it? If anybody is drowsing, then the shepherd will come and say, meh. Okay? The shepherd will come next to you and say, meh. Who's the sheep is going to be is the next person who's at your side. You should never just give a little tickle to the person. You say, go near the ear and say, Father said, meh. Okay? Why? Because you're preparing for Merry Christmas. Okay? The next month it's going to come up. So therefore, the topic is going to arise, but before we go to the topic, we need to draw our lesson from what Jesus speaks. I've taken a scripture passage from Mark chapter 10, verses 42 to 45. If anybody from there, from the crowd, could be loud enough to read it, please read it for me. Anybody from the crowd? No, so the text is already there, the screen.
Jesus called them together and said, "You know that those who
Thank you. There is a highlighted sentence in this text that I'm not giving the exegesis of this text, but Jesus observes different kind of leaders in the social background. You know, for most of the revolutionists, whether they see Jesus as God, they see Jesus as one of the revolutionaries of his time. Because he was a counterculture personality of his time. But not a counterculture personality where he gives another ideology. Jesus doesn't give another new ideology there. But the beauty of Jesus is he tries to insist the present ideology to be followed well. Counterculture is not that there is a culture there and I'm doing something right opposite to counter it. No. The act of Jesus as a leader is that what we were committed for, let's not forget about it. What we were committed for, let's not forget about it. Because forgetting what you're committed itself is a counteract. If you're married and all the 3 vows that you took at your marital life, you forget or you fade that away, that's counteracting towards your marital life. That means you're not doing something opposite in your marital life. The very committed thing that you forgot is acting counter to the committed thing that you made. So for Jesus, the Pharisees, the scribes, and anyone in the higher authority, they were not committed to what they were promised to do. So Jesus says, so they counteracted to the commitment. So Jesus goes, that's what in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus was very clear by saying that I have come not to abolish any law, but I've come to fulfill everything that already exists. And therefore, when I'm trying to fulfill everything that exists, the ones who aren't fulfilling it are threatened by me. Are threatened by me. So a leader is a leader who starts getting committed to what vow or promises he takes. He doesn't need to do anything new. He needs to present what he is doing well. So therefore, Jesus was very keen in what he was presenting. And therefore, he calls his disciples and says, a leader is not a one who tries to overload somebody. Overload. But in the gospel, where Jesus says to disciples is, to become a leader, because you also are looking at the society and you're drawn by different leaders there. So, to become a leader, you need to become a servant. Here is a question which I want to ask you all, that because it is the observance of the disciples, the observance of Jesus pointing out different leaders. And the disciples are drawn to different models of leaders. And they are seated at Jesus to get a right model of leadership. So today when we are seated here, surely before you could be seated here, you in your life, you have already seen the society, the social structure, in the economic structure, in the finance structure, where in the business structure, whichever, or even the church structure, different kinds of leaders. So what kind of leaders have you seen, heard, met, and thought one day, I wish I become like them? Your eyes on the screen. What kind of leaders have you seen, heard, met, thought one day, I wish I become like them? Can anybody share something like that, where you had a choice or had a chance to hear this person constantly, or to see this person constantly, or you met this person regularly and you felt like I want to be like him. For example, Brother Colin, whenever he's in the YouTube channel on different themes when he talks, there are many youngsters who view his channel. Like, they not only just subscribe the channel, they also wish one day that they meet him in person, or one day join a stage with him to talk like him. So there are many who dream many things. So I'm asking you, if we all, let's not count on our age. Okay. Because, as I said, I'm going to proceed further. You will know what true leadership is further. I'm just asking you, who was the first person whom you ever seen and met and heard and said, this is what I want to be? Yes. Yeah. Just keep it short, okay? Because my talk is here. Yeah. Okay. Different context as well. Let's put our hands for her. Let's put our hands for her because she's... Come on, we need to encourage somebody. Yep. Yes. Anybody else? One more. Yes.
I live very close to the Jesuit provincial house in Goa, and Father Roland Coelho, who was provincial for 6 years there, was holding a high post, but very simple, a real servant of God, and he used to address our charismatic meetings himself and make it very interesting with notes and all that. And early morning, when the sun rises, I go with for Mass first to God, then I go with my dog. As I go for walks, I used to see him going to the hill where to say Mass, walking quite a hill up to say Mass at a convent. So I look up to him as a real servant leadership.
Let's put our hands together we need to appreciate and thank. Thank you so much. Okay. Anybody last? Yes. Do you want to use the mic? Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause for her. Come on, a little louder. Yup. My dear friends, before we all aspire to be a leader or peep within ourselves I want to just get that, as I said in the morning, get the child out. Because it was not just the word that I spoke, it is my own experience. Because when you get the child out of you, if your child is convinced, I'm not saying your child, the child within you, then you can touch millions of souls because you could touch your soul. So a true leader is not touching hundreds of souls. A true leader is able to help you to touch your soul. For example, for the two sisters over here and our brother here, it is not just what the fathers act or the superiors act in your workplace. Something touched your soul, and that soul woke you up and said, this is what you are. This is what you wanted to be. This is what you really want to frame yourself. But you're struggling. When are you going to get that child out and make that thing happen? Make that thing happen. So therefore, in my life, the first leader, as a very young boy, I happened to see, not very close but very far, was Mother Teresa. Because when Mother Teresa was in Bangalore, whereas I was thinking I was just studying my 3rd or 4th standard, and the entire crowd was gathered in Segaraj Church, Richmond Road. So there was a plenty of crowded people there, and absolutely none of them could ever see how was Mother Teresa looking, because the stage was packed with priests, bishop and everybody. And my father said to me, I am unable to see her. I will just shoulder you. You just climb on my shoulder. And if you could see her, it is well and fine that I have seen her. If my son has seen, it is as if I have seen her and had the pleasure of seeing. So my father balanced me on his shoulder, and I saw her. When I saw her, she was so tiny, so tiny. And when I didn't only see her, but I saw the massive crowd just right before me. And that day, I had a dream that from where did this crowd gather and what did she do? Because until then, I didn't know what she did. All I knew was just she was called Mother Teresa. But you know, when I joined, I didn't read anything about her. But when I was doing my secondary degree, when I had a transformation, my own self, the first saint book I picked up was hers. When I started to read about her, I understood why that day that crowd stood before her. And a tiny structure could gather a massive crowd. So an insignificant mustard seed can gather a branch of and build of nests and birds there. So we all are insignificant in some way or the other, tiny, but we all have the power to gather something massive, something massive, something massive. And therefore, to gather that massive, you know, my rich experience of Mother Teresa was, the day I read her story, I took a little picture of hers and placed it in my wallet. I carried Mother Teresa everywhere I went. Everywhere I went, I carried her in the wallet. And when I joined the seminary, I studied my 8 years in Bombay. So when I studied in Bombay, so one day we have a kind of a course where a priest in charge for the tribes, he had come and said, one day in Bombay city, you should live with one particular tribe and get to know how their life is. So we were divided in different groups. We 3 brothers sent by 3. So we picked up the lot, and my place was Mahim. I went to Mahim, and we were searching where are the different tribes. So suddenly we located a particular tribe which was just adjacent to the Mahim station. So we approached, and I am a non-Hindi speaking guy, and we have 2 other brothers who are speaking Hindi. So they went to those tribe people. Immediately, few of the men became very furious and said, what are you here for? And they chased those 2 Hindi guys. I said, we have to go and talk to them. Do something. We 3 were planning, and finally, We three went to the very closer once again, and immediately something just said, take your wallet and show this. Like this is like the CID officers, you know, show who you are. So immediately I took my wallet and I just showed, "Hum idhar se aa rahe hai." I don't know what else to say. I just said, "Hum idhar se aa rahe hai." They saw Mother Teresa's picture, and the so ruggedly behaving people, they calmed down, and we interviewed them. We got to know about them. We had a meal with them, and we were back. How could this woman, I saw on a stage where every elegant people were standing next to her and knew who she was, and even the people who are very simplest could know who she is. So there is some common thing that she has which goes this way and goes this way as well. So a leader is, as I said, his directions are upward, inward, and outward. Upward, inward, and outward. He moves in all circumferences. So therefore, Jesus, in the gospel text that we read, and the leaders that we have seen, Jesus from Mark chapter 10 verses 43 to 45, when he made his disciples sit, he speaks about 2 schools of leadership. How many schools of leadership? Can I get it loudly? How many schools? So the first, it is simultaneous, it's not that this is first and that is second. The 2 schools are self-serving leaders and servant leaders. Self-serving leaders. You can just look at the images there at the PPT. Self-serving leaders and servant leaders. Now, my primary question, have you seen it before? You got it? Okay. The 2 kinds of schools. So, the primary question which I'm going to pose you all right now is, how do we identify these leaders? That is, self-serving leaders and servant leaders. How do we identify them? They are among us. Now, even in these 4 walls, they are the 2 different kinds of leaders. As I keep on moving from one presentation point, you will get to know, am I a self-serving leader or a servant leader? So, how do we identify these leaders? Depends on their services. Depends on their services. If you ordered something, think you ordered a burger, and it tasted well, immediately your friends and others ask, where did you buy this burger? And immediately you say, I bought it from Burger King, or you bought it from Subway. Because it depends upon the service that is being provided to you, or because the service talks about the entire process as well. Because the service talks about the entire process. So it depends upon the service. You can identify, are they self-serving leaders or servant leaders? So, there are many biblical passages to describe or bring differences between self-serving leaders and servant leaders. I've just taken, so depends upon the service. So the self-serving leader serves the passions one desires. A self-serving leader serves the passions that one desires. But the servant leader serves the mission and vision of the one who called. A self-serving leader serves what? passions, one's own passions. I have the passion for driving. I have the passion for playing. I have the passion for singing. See, a guy singing in orchestra is different from a guy who's leading the praise and worship. What is he doing for? That is for self-gain and self-success. That is what Mother Teresa said when somebody asked her, for whom are you doing this service? She said, it is not for me to be successful. It is for me to be faithful. When Mother Teresa was asked, for whom are you doing this service? She said, I'm not doing it to be a successful person. I'm doing this service to be a faithful person because I have a mission, a vision of the one who called me. So therefore, to still more give you a clear picture of who's a person who has a lot of passions, who's a person who is really responding to a mission and a vision. So there are many Bible passages and I have just taken the origin passage. The origin passage, that is the creation story. You may be wondering, Father, how is creation story related to passion and mission and vision? Shall we go ahead? Yes? So, I've divided into two. First, I'm going to talk about servant leadership, and the second part will be self-serving leadership in the creational story. Because that is the origin. If I get to know the origin, then you'll know the revelation at the end. Praise the Lord. So you will know the revelation at the end. So the servant leader with a mission and vision in the creation is, mission was what you're called to be. Vision is what you're called to do. Mission is what you're called to be. There is in what you're called to be is there's no action involved there. You just need to be there. But a vision is what you're called to do, or what is sent forth for. What you're called to be is a disciple. What you're called to do is the authority given by Jesus as a disciple. What you're called to be is just to be a disciple of Jesus. Just be with him. That's what in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus asked the three of them, just be with me. And the vision was, pray with me. So be with me and pray with me. Mission is to be and vision is to do. So in the creation story, what was the vision and mission of a servant leader? So traits of the servant leader from the creation story. The first point is integrity. We'll read the Bible passage, then we'll go to the reflection. Integrity, because I've taken verse by verse by verse by verse, okay, from beginning from 1 till chapter 3. Chapter 1, verses 26. God said, let us make mankind in our own image and likeness. Let's make mankind in our own image and likeness. So, the first gift that God gave every human is his own integrity. Because the important word here is, let me make. Let me make. And that's therefore, God didn't go looking for leaders. God didn't go looking for leaders. He looked obedient people whom he then formed into leaders. So integrity lies in obedience. Integrity of the first image of God is integrity, because integrity needs obedience there. Obedience. And when God made man and women, he wanted them to obey to him, obey to his own likeness. obey to his own image, that integrity. So a servant leader is a person, because in this world God does, as he said, God does search, okay, he's good in singing, we can make him a worship leader. He's good in playing guitar, why couldn't we bring him into our leader as a playing leader in the music? No, that's how we gauge. Looking at certain people's characteristics or contribution. You know, recently, 2 years ago, when I was placed as a parish priest, the first person who left the job in the parish was a sacristan. You know, in Bangalore, it's very hard to take away a sacristan from the job, because he's very equivalent to a priest, because he knows everything about the parish. I had a very lovely sacristan. He used to do every work, but there was no truthfulness in him. No truthfulness. When I say obedient is about truthfulness, being true. So when I caught him in different occasions, I said, you and me are not going well because I don't find you being true. I know you are an excellent worker. You are here morning 5:30 and you go back home at 8 o'clock. I know you are an excellent worker, but I don't find you being a very integrity person. I cannot have you as my sacristan. After him, I appointed another person. He is very truthful, innocent, but he is not as shrewd. He is not as prudent. He is not as brilliant and intelligent like the previous guy. Because the previous guy, before I could say something, it will be ready. But for this person, I need to keep saying something. Now, when people are observing, most of them said, Father, you could have compromised with his act of truthfulness, because he does everything before it's said. But for this guy, you need to keep saying, why are you still holding on to him? I said, integrity. Because for me, it's not about the work being done. It's about who's doing that work. It's not about, yes. Yeah, I'll get back to you later. Yes. So, it's not about work to be done, but who does the work. That's why Jesus called the 12. He could have called the Pharisees, he called the Sadducees, he could have called someone who are great enough. But the very sentence is about God didn't go looking for leaders. He looked obedient people whom he formed into leaders. That means one who can be truthful to you. If he's truthful to you, he will be truthful to the work. If he's not truthful, he's truthful for the work, but may not be truthful to you. So, a leader needs to be truthful to himself. The second point is about stewardship. Genesis chapter 1 verses 28. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Here, the servant leader needs to have stewardship. Stewardship is the way in which the person controls and organizes. The way the person controls. Controls means is not about, having things under his control. No. Control is about how he sets a limit for each and everything. How he sets a boundary for each and everything. How he sets above that limit is, I can use this word, that's about how you give space for everything. A true servant leader gives a space. Within that space, you can really, because we see when man was created, God brings him and puts him into the place called Eden. Was that the only place that God created? Out of that place, there were other places as well. But God brings and puts him into a place and to have his own space. And in that space, God wants to see how he brings things into order or organizes those things. So stewardship is how better do you use your space? And what do you organize in that space? So a steward, what does he organize is, he is fruitful in that place. He is productive in that place. And also, he subdues that place and he sees that every space is filled with what his choices are of. So a leader should know what his space is. And within that given space, how does he organize? The fourth point is authority. In 128, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heaven, and over every living thing. That means authority is recognize the need of the co-existentials. When we went to the tea break, if the first person thinks of the last person, tea will remain. If the first person just thinks about himself, nothing will remain. If this generation thinks of the generation to come, the next generation will survive. If this generation doesn't think about the next generation is up to come, this generation is going to spoil the earth. So, authority of a leader is he recognizes the needs of the co-existentials. That because every co-existential, that means something lives today and leaves behind. Remember, something lives today and leaves behind. Something lives today and doesn't get extincted. There is nothing that God had created that it lives today and extincted tomorrow. God created everything in a way that it lives today and leaves behind. Leaves behind. And that is what, for the ones who are coming after us, is also come under the word called co-existentials. So the authority is, when I leave behind. Leave behind. And that's the authority. Authority. Because in Isaiah 55, verses 11, when God says, when a drop of rain falls on the earth, it fulfills his purpose and returns back in plenty. But the form is different. The form is different. So therefore, you have the authority to recognize the needs of the co-existentials. The fourth is compassionate collaborator. Not just collaborator. You know, when Cardinal Oswald Gracious was giving a talk for us as deacons before we were being ordained, he asked us a question. When you go to a parish, how do people address you in the parish? So we all said unanimously, they call us assistant parish priest, isn't it? Do you all call assistant parish priest, isn't it? But he said, we need to give people a new look. We should never tell people, call us as assistant parish priest. People should tell us as collaborating parish priest. The word Cardinal Oswald Gracious taught us is, you're not an assistant parish priest. You are a collaborator to that parish priest. You're collaborating in that parish. You're collaborating with that parish priest. So, make the right choice who's going to be your collaborator. If you choose the wrong collaborator, you will collapse. You will collapse. So therefore, even in your family life, in your marital life, you didn't choose the right collaborator, your family life is going to collapse. So therefore, the verse is, God said, it's not good that man should live alone, should be alone. I will make him a helper as his partner. That means who's a collaborator creates a sense of belonging. Creates a sense of belonging. You know, I was just watching this movie Inside Out 2. I don't know how many of you watched that movie. You know, when the new team comes, the old team preserves something. What is it? The sense of belonging, you know. The sense of belonging. They just dump it to a place which it shouldn't be there. Then the old team goes in search of the sense of belonging. The entire movie was talking about how if a person in his life loses a sense of belonging, there is no sense of survival. Right from this childhood, from the very day that we are going to die, we need someone to really give us the approval that you belong to me. Can AI give you the approval? You know, I don't know how many of you all are tech savvies here, but AI came up with a new version called the Omni. Okay, Omni is nothing but a friendly talk, very friendly talk where in your workspace you're getting bored or tired, you can just talk to that very system and it will give you a sense of belonging. You know, it's called the AI Omni. You can go to the Google and see it. You know, the sense of belonging I see today in my home. The late 30s when my dad and my mom were married, I never got as a child to see that they shared the sense of belonging. Because they were hecked up in working. Sense of working was there. Because you have to raise kids and everybody. Today both the parents are 60. Today they are partially retired. I'm not saying completely retired. They are partially retired. But I see that today after late 40s and 50s, they share the sense of belonging. That one cannot live without the other. If someone goes even in 5 minutes away, there's a call asking, where are you? You need to set up a timer for AI to ask you very often, where are you? Okay, and with this just one mechanical voice. But today when I'm at home, there's my brother who calls up and asks me, where are you? There's my sister-in-law who calls me and asks you, where are you? There's my nephew who calls me, asks me, where are you? They are different voices. So a sense of belonging is what a servant leader gives to his flock. Sense of belonging. So are you compassionate? The fifth point is Genesis chapter 2 verses 15. God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden to till it and keep it. Responsibility. Till it and keep it means produce and preserve. There are 3 rules in economics, okay, which I have learned, they may be updated. The 3 rules in economics. That is, either two rules, either preserve or progress. In a market, you need to preserve, or either you progress. So, the same thing God teaches his servant in the beginning of the origin itself. Keep it and till it. That means produce it, progress it. If you're not able to progress it, at least preserve it. Preserve it. A leader should preserve. If he doesn't preserve what he started at the beginning of his mission, and he in the middle, if there are many people who come into his group and dilute his mission, it's gone. Why are today these Redemptorist founders are there, Jesuit founders are there? Why are there founders are there? And there are many founders who have started many congregations, but it's collapsed. There are many pastors who have started their churches and it's collapsed. Many prayer groups have started and it's collapsed because they didn't stick up to their responsibility. That is, they did not preserve what they started at the beginning. Then how do you think it will progress in the end? Always preserve what you started in the beginning so that till the end it is preserved. The sixth point is dignity. Genesis chapter 2 verses 24. They were both naked, yet were not ashamed. They were both naked, yet were not ashamed. Respect the unique identity of the other person. Because you're collaborating with every person, don't expect everyone to be like you. Don't ever expect everyone to be like you. Because in the seminary I've learned that when the rector says everyone should be at 9 o'clock at the chapel, there'll at least be about 5 people who will come at 9, 10 inside the chapel. For whatever reason, some are always quite late. If the rector kept on saying, come, 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 and they're not changing, they're not part of your mission. They're not part of your mission. Everyone has a unique identity. Everyone has a unique identity there. And we need to respect that. Respect that. And the last one is awareness. God said, you must not eat it or even touch it. If you do, you will die. Conscious of the event happening around you. When God placed Adam and Eve, He made him conscious about the things around him. Not just being conscious about yourself, but the events that happens around you. He said, don't touch that, don't eat that, don't look at that, whatever it is. Be conscious about the events happening around you. Sometimes you go to the leader and all of a sudden, I didn't know that's happening there. I didn't know what is going on there. So you're not a servant leader. A servant leader should know everything. Should know everything that's happening around him. Everything happening around him. Why Jesus called the Pharisees as a blind rats? Because they were not aware of what was things going around him. Now we go to this is servant leadership. Now we're going to the next thing is called the self-serving leader. I'm going to be a little bit fast because of the time. If you grant me another extra 5 minutes, I will just, yeah. The second part is the self-serving leader. So what was the servant leader serves the mission and vision of the one who called. The self-serving leader serves the what? For God. Yes, one's own passion and desires. So now we're going to see how that is happening in the creation story. Okay? The first is deception. God, now is the entrance of Satan. Okay? From 3rd chapter, it's the entrance of Satan. So the Satan says to Eve, you will not die. You will not die. Creating a false hope for self-gain. A self-serving leader always creates a false hope. The leader knows that something is going to happen wrong, but yet the leader will say, hey, that's nothing going to happen. Be calm, be easy, nothing is going to happen. But the entire crew knows that there's something going to go wrong. But the leader hides it because no matter whatever happens there, I'm safe here. So, he presents something to deceive people, to deceive for his self-gain. Because Eve, before this conversation, said, Satan, God said, if I eat, I will die. But the Satan says, no, that's not how it works. You won't die. Creating a false hope. Creating a false hope. For example, this afternoon, I and Brother Colin were talking about some kind of a retreat somewhere else. And I just said, I told Brother Colin, if you want to invite our bishop, No, let's put these things and therefore bishop will be pleased. I was just saying an idea. Brother said, that's not what I am, Father. I don't do something for my self-gain. So give me another way to go about. A person who's not there for his self-gain. Because he said there are many others who do such things for their self-gain. So therefore, what are the things that I can do for my self-gain? Deceive somebody. The second thing is self-gratification. When you eat of it, your eyes will be opened. Look out for your self-satisfaction. When you eat it, your eyes will be opened. Your eyes will be opened. So therefore, were Adam and Eve blind before? Were they blind? Their eyes were already opened. But what they were not opened was their satisfaction. Their satisfaction. In a marital life, if a woman or a man says, I'm not happy living with you for some reason or the other, I could say not 100%, at least for 40 to 60%, I'm not getting satisfied by you. For whatever reason it is, I'm not satisfied. So I want to call off. If in a marital life, in any mission that you take place, if you're going to see your self-satisfaction, things don't work out. Things don't work out. Because you're looking for your self-gratification. The third is ambitious. The Satan said to Eve, you will become God. Immediately, it's all running behind Eve's mind. I will become God. That means looking for a place of honor. Looking for a place of honor. That is what Jesus disliked the Pharisees and scribes, because wherever they went, they looked for seats of honor. Honor. And therefore, a person, I'm not saying don't have ambitions. Ambitions are different from being ambitious. Okay? Have the ambition to score well, that is different. Ambitious is the crooked path that you take to reach your ambitions. So, God says, that's what St. Paul says in Philippians 2:5. Don't have self-ambitious, but place others' interest before you. The fourth point is manipulation. Genesis 3:5, knowing of good and evil. That means now you are in a state of knowing this evil is presenting you good and evil. Choosing evil ways to succeed greater good. Choosing evil ways to succeed greater good. So you manipulate this person because there's a great interest in yourself. And therefore, this small evil, this small lie is no problem. Because I know the consequences of it. Because this person is a self-serving leader, he is good in manipulating. He's good in manipulating. Because if he's a snake, he's also a charmer. Okay? If he's a snake, don't think he's only hissing here. He also can charm well. Okay? He's a manipulator. Then, the fifth point is non-resilient. Non-resilient is, he realized that they were naked. They sewed fig leaves together and made covering for themselves, unable to withstand situation or person. Non-resilient. The moment they ate the fruit, what are these leaders doing? They've already done a mistake. So when you have done a mistake, you want to keep it quiet. Until somebody, if there is a whistleblower, then things are known. Until somebody doesn't blow the whistle, I just want to be resilient. That means resilient is that I don't want to stand for what I did. Even if it's a fault, if a good leader should stand for what he has done, except for what he has done. Like the good thief on the cross who said, I am a thief. I've done. But can you, with your grace, provide me providence in paradise? Accept your faults, your drawbacks, and stand for it. Stand for it, because you're working with the team. As I said, we need to rectify self and not try to bring perfection in someone else. The sixth point is hypocrisy. It was delight to their eyes. So, to present what you're not. It was delight to their eyes. That means the Satan is presenting what it is not. So, a self-serving leader will always have an hypocrisy. He'll be an hypocrite. He will try to put on something. What is he not? But a servant leader doesn't need hypocrisy. And the last three is withdrawal. Now God questions Adam, where are you? And immediately Adam says, I was afraid, I was naked, and I hid myself. That means when situations are not favorable to you, you withdraw from it. You withdraw from it. Last week I had my mission Sunday in the parish, and the youth put up a stall. And there was somebody who said, Father, if this product is in the stall, then other stalls are affected. Can you tell the youths to give up that very product? I called the youths of the parish and said, just that product, you can just give it to someone else. The youth together said, we are not going to partake in this mission Sunday. They are not going to partake in this mission Sunday. Father, that is what we wanted. And the elders of the parish said, okay, fine, Father, let's see next year, let them have it. When situations are not favorable for you, you manipulate everyone and say, let's withdraw. Let's withdraw. Why we need to be collaborators for him? Let's withdraw. That is what Satan does. They withdrew. And the last two, justify. The woman whom you gave to me, to be with me, she gave me the fruit. To justify. Self-defending with arguments, to protect oneself, and to give up on your team. That means when God is conversing with Adam, he's picking up an argument with God. When you have done a mistake, when you have done something wrong, as I said before, don't try to justify it. A self-serving leader keeps justifying it, repeating it again and again and again until you say, okay, Baba, take it. Justifying. The last is blaming. The serpent tricked me. Whose words are these? Eve. Unable to accept criticism. Unable to accept criticism. What was the question God asked Eve? The question God asked Eve is, what have you done? Simple question, what have you done? What was the answer? The serpent tricked me. Because Eve is not able to accept the criticism that God, because already Adam is blamed now. And after blaming, now God is going to criticize her for what she has done. Because what have you done? If you ask a child, what have you done? The child is immediately steps back because it knows that now I'm going to be criticized. So therefore, I'm not ready for criticism. There is always a constructive criticism. Let's be a self-serving leader doesn't like criticisms. But a servant leader is open for constructive criticisms. So, my dear friends, that's the end of my slide. That's the end of my talk. So, I come to the conclusion of today, from the origin itself of the creation, God made a very distinctive between servant leader, self-serving leader. Today in the church, the society, or the workplace, we have two categories of people. One who is ready to go out and be a servant. One who wishes others to serve them. But as a Christian, Jesus I want to go back to the first slide. For me, it is not about, you see, the second sentence is not my concern. The second slide, this is not my concern. My only the first two words, what you want to become. What you want to become. And therefore, it's not about age restriction, it's not about your designation, it is about yourself. It's about yourself. Because you are not called, we are all not called to be leaders there are people who are called for leaders for many purposes. But if you could lead your own conscience, you're a great leader. You're a great, great leader. That's what God wants from us. What drew Mother Teresa was that she was not called for a leader to serve everybody. She knew that she could bring out the child in her out and serve that child. And therefore, I thank Brother Colin and everyone who are here today giving this opportunity to share on this topic, because I am also on the journey. Because there are two sides of each person, self and servant as well. Self and servant. To which one do you keep drawing is what makes you. Self or servant. Thank you, everyone.